I think probably the first thing that needs to be said, and I'm probably going to say it completely wrong, and I apologise for saying the wrong words. The women, as I understand, have one or two issues. For any of the issues, I take complete and utter responsibility. The idea to put it in Masas Mordechai was my opinion, was my idea. And I know you're complaining that you can't see, and I sincerely apologise to every one of you. Next time that the rabbi comes, then we'll try to find a better solution or a different place. And you know, I just hope you're able to enjoy the Shia like you're intending to before, and any anger you have, direct it directly at me and nobody else. I'm used to it. Thank you very much. The dilemma I had today is what to call the rabbi. I have no idea. I've known the Rav because I was born in Liverpool, in England, and he used to live there. Believe it or not, for those of you who know Liverpool, there was once a kollel in Liverpool. Yeah, I see the eyes going surprised, and the rabbi was in that kollel. And my sister was employed by the Rav as, we use the word metapelet, but I think they use a different word in England. So we have a kesher. And also when I went to I don't want to use the word in here, an Institute of Higher Education in Preston, the Rav used to come once a month, 2 months, or whenever it was. He used to come, and part of the reason I'm here is probably because of the chizuk I got from the Rav. So my dilemma was what to call the Rav, because you know, as we were all growing up, everyone calls the Rav YY. And that doesn't work in this place. I can't call him YY. But I can't also call him Rabbi YY because that sounds strange. I can't call him Rav YY because that's mixing languages. And I can't call him Rabbi Rubenstein because that's not him, that's somebody else. So I've got absolutely no idea how to call him up. So while I think about it, there's a pasuk in Mishlei which I think completely describes the rabbi really well. It's a very famous pasuk. We'll read what the Malbim says. Educate a child according to his way. Gam ki yazkin lo yasur mimenu. Also, not only will he'll get the chinuch when he's young, but it also, this chinuch he gets, he won't get it when he's older. He won't lose it when it's older. It stays with him. I think I'm a living example of this idea, at least I hope I am. And the Malbim says there's two things to learn from the beginning of the pasuk. So when it says the chanoich l'na'al pi da'akoi, so the two sides, yechanchu and now, you need to educate the child. Listen to the words that the Malbim said, and this is exactly, I think, describes the rabbi. Yasu boy chuki atzum. You should put in the now a huge impression, something that's massive, not just the learning that the child gets, but the impression it makes on the child. V'roishem shamor b'nefesh, and the impression that's made on the child, it becomes part of you. It stays inside you. That's what keeps you older. Lo yasor gam la'is zikno. And that Roshan that you have won't leave. The Rav is inspired and influenced so many people. I think these words of the Mishlei are completely applicable. And the second part, so I said there were two parts. One second. And the second part is mitzvah sheyeh chinuch al pi da'akoi. And the secret of good chinuch is you don't educate everybody the same way, you educate them in different ways. I remember, for example, a Shabbos I had when I was a student in the Rav's house, when I wasn't like I was now. And it's something I'll never forget, and not just because of the whiskey, but it was something I will never ever forget. I remember it until this day. And I remember thinking, I want some of this. Chinuch al pi da'akoi, and I think that's part of the secret. So I'd now like to call upon the Rav Yehuda, Yona, Rubenstein, Shlita to speak.
Thank you very much. People still call me YY. I'm quite comfortable with it. Actually, I prefer Your Holiness, but whatever. Can the lady see me through there? Oh, sorry. I'm here. I'm over here. Somebody who spoke to me tonight when I was coming in the front door and said, I first heard you speak 35 years ago. Really? It's a bit worrying actually, people are telling me that you spoke 35 years ago. And he said that, you see, I used to hear the rabbis speak in show, but you were the first person I went to hear to speak. And that's very, very sweet. And he's continuing going to hear shiurim, so that's a nice idea. And there's an old friend of mine, or a new friend of mine, a new old friend of mine called Rafi, who I used to teach. I taught recently in yeshiva, teaching yeshiva called Shor Yoshev in New York. And I have to tell you, it was probably a mistake moving to New York. I could have moved here. And in such a we will. But it has been very mitzliach. And the reason is because of my accent. Because Americans don't really do accents. They don't really get accents. I was in Manhattan saying a shiur, and after I finished, there was two old fellows sitting in the front. And one of them said to the other, "The guy's brilliant." His French said, "Yeah. What did he say?" His friend said, "I haven't a clue, but he's brilliant." So all you really need to be successful in America is an accent and the supposition that nobody has the slightest clue what you're talking about. Hopefully we'll change that a little bit tonight. And I also think, incidentally, moving from 35 years ago to meeting more recent friends looking around here from everywhere in between. I feel, I've not found a positive for this yet, but I'm sure it's right. I'm margish, believing that it's not a coincidence the people you bump into in your life. The words that, I would say the best shiurim is what I give and what I get back. And also my best shiurim chapters in my books are always come from questions that people ask me, and I don't know the answer to. In fact, I believe the most exciting sentence in the English language, or any language, is "Anilo yodea." I don't know. When somebody asks you a question and you don't know, it's an invitation to find out, to go and discover. You don't know. It's good. I don't know, and I want to know. And it's something exciting to find out what it's all about. And I was saying shiur on Shabbos. There was a group of Sephardi boys, Persian and Macarian boys, came to Shor Yoshev, and it was called the 5 Towns in New York. And they asked me to say a shiur on Shabbos, which I was very happy to do. And so I said this shiur, and it was matzliach, so the boys asked me if I would come and join them for Shalosh Shudas. Somebody was hosting for Sudash Rishit in their house, and I said yes, and I came. And they asked me to speak again. And one of the boys asked me a question, and I thought it was a very, very interesting question, like a shmaka question, as we say in Persian. And the question was like this. He said, Rabbi Rubinstein, he didn't call me Your Holiness. Rabbi Rubinstein, he said, so many of the mitzvahs that we do are zeicher l'yetzias Mitzrayim. Everything, almost everything, zeicher l'yetzias Mitzrayim. And he says, am I right in thinking that God taking us out of Egypt is a fundamental of our belief of Yadut? I said, it's absolutely a fundamental of Yadut. We've got to express our Koras gratitude for what people do to you, or do for you. And if that's missing, there's something called Chaim Friedman says that's the Iker Jewish midah, is of course. So if that's missing, then and look what Hashem did for us. He took us up from the Sham, so of course you're quite right. And he said, It's an interesting word, I'll come back to later on. He said, I don't understand it then. I said, what's the problem? Why are we thanking God for taking us out from Mitzrayim? He put us there in the first place. It's a good question. It's from a university student who's sorry, I used the U word. Well, you weren't one once. It's like a shmaka question. Why do we have to thank Hashem for taking us from Mitzrayim? And the gefel chazach and the terrible things that happened to us there, avodah kasher, He put us there in the first place. So why do we thank Him? Very Geschmack question. And I want to strengthen that a little bit more. There's an Al-Shuk. The Al-Shuk brings this twice. You can find it also in the Gemara, in Baba Basra. But the Al-Shuk brings it like this, and he says, when Hashem Yisbarach wanted to destroy Klal Yisrael for our mistake of making the Egel Azov, then Moshe Rabbeinu, as we know, fought very strongly to defend the Jewish people. And at one point, he says the following thing, and whenever I see this, I cannot stop smiling. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem Yisbarach, this is in the Medrash, this is in the Gemara, Amoshel lecho lama adona dami. I want to give you a moshel as to what the situation is like. Now, why do we give a moshel? What's the purpose and function of a moshel? A moshel is to illustrate a difficult idea in terms which make it not so difficult to comprehend. There's always a king. Incidentally, I just brought out a new sefer. I didn't bring them to sell, so don't worry. It's called Refuah Salit. It's a new translation of the Shara B'tochen, the Chovs Levovos. And when he wrote the sefer, and this is going 1,000 years ago, he wrote it in Arabic because 90% of the Jewish world, 1,000 years ago, Arabic was our Mamalosh. And therefore he wrote it in Arabic because that's what people would understand. So the purpose was to write it in a way that people would get it. So when I translated it, I wanted to make sure that people will get it. So he gives an example of somebody going through a desert, in a situation of danger, sakana, because you're going through a desert without any water. Now, when was the last time you went through a desert without any water? It doesn't happen to me a lot. So I translated that as, you're flying in a plane through severe turbulence. Because that I can relate to, it makes sense. So it has to be that the language that you're speaking is something that relates to you, that you understand. Otherwise, it dies. And there's any language in the translation, even though I'm quite pleased with the translation. A friend of mine said, oh, this is Nitzchias. Your other books? Oh, books got a lifetime. This is Nitzchias. This is immortality. No, it's not. The translation's got a lifetime of 50 years. And then the English that I used now, 50 years time, will also be seen as being antiquated and no good and no points with it. Have to be redone. Well, the Al-Shuk says, Moshe says, a moshel l'chol lama adona dami. I want to give you a moshel. A moshel is an idea that takes a difficult concept, paints it in terms that you can understand. So Klal Yisrael, yeah, we made the Egel Azov, terrible thing. So here's the idea. Rabban Shalom, here's the moshel, just in case you're struggling with this little bit. Let me explain to you. I mean, it's a joke. It's talking to Hashem. There was a father, and the father had a son. The son was a very good-looking boy. And the father wanted to set the son up in business and give him a parnasa. So he decided he would open for him a store, selling perfume. And the perfume store was open in a shuk full of zoinos. And he says, well, the perfume played its part, the scent leaking out of the store. That sucked in the immoral young woman. And the youth played its part. And guess what happened to the handsome young man? Well, the Nimshal Rabban Shalom is that the handsome young man was Klal Yisrael. And the shuk full of Zionis, that was Mitzrayim. And the father that put the son there that got him into trouble, that was you! So no one knew they made a terrible mistake. Whose fault is it? Said Moshe Rabbeinu to Hashem. Now, of course, Hashem knew that already. Moshe's job is to defend Klal Yisrael. But you see that the argument's a valid argument. Moshe Rabbeinu made the argument. And don't forget the pasuk in the Torah, Boni Matem Hashem Lakechem. We are children of Hashem. We are sons of Hashem. So we are supposed to express gratitude to Hashem Yisborach because He took us out from Israel. Thank you so much. Thank you for nothing. He put us there in the first place. That's what the Moshe says. I thought it was a very good question. And the most exciting question is the one you don't know the answer to. I don't know. Ich weiß nicht. If I don't know, that means I've got the chance to go and try and find out what the answer is, and that can make all the difference in the world. So the title this year, really, if you remember, is the enormous effect that other people have in your life. Here's a Gemara, and the Gemara's in Chagiga. And I was saying Shirim for for a girls' school in a place called the Catskills. They call them the Catskill. Any here from New York? New Yorkers? Okay. Quite a few. They call them the Catskill Mountains. Hills. I'm Scottish. We know what mountains look like. In fact, they're not even hills, they're pimples. Anyway. So I was saying, we're there for a Shabbaton, and it's one of these camps that they have in the middle of nowhere. And it's, you know, it's closed for the whole of the winter, and then they open it when it comes to the camp season. And there's a little show there. I think it's called Bait Mold, and all the rooms covered in mold. Anyway, I found the safe that one of the pages didn't stick together. The only Gemara I could open was the Gemara Chagiga. Shabbos just happened to open it at random, and I found a very interesting Gemara. Listen to this. Tomer Rabban. The rabbis teach the following thing. Maisa Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. There's a story about Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, Rabbi Elazar ben Chasma, another rabbi called Elazar ben Chasma. Shaholcho lahakbil pnei Rabbi Shua. They went to see the great Rabbi Shua, their Rebbe, who was coming, so they went to greet him, to go and greet the Rebbe. A place called the Pekin. So he said, well, what did you learn? What discovery, what discovery did you find in the Torah? And I said, it's a wonderful thing. You don't know the answer. When you find the answer, what did you find? What did you discover in the Torah? So they were embarrassed. They didn't want to say Torah in front of Rabbi Shua because they are his Talmidim. They want to hear stuff from him. We are your Talmidim. They say, we've come to drink from the water of Torah that you supply. We don't want to say anything. You're right. That's a good Jewish, that's an appropriate Jewish response. However, it's impossible. There's no such thing as a yeshiva, a Beis HaMedrash, without discoveries in Torah being made. Therefore, Shabbos Shomi Hoyasa. So who was darshaning, who was explaining, who was giving a shiur this particular Shabbat? He said, who was it? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Ooh, it was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the head of the Sanhedrin. Elazar ben Azariah. Yeah. So what did he tell you today? Amar Loi, Pashas Hakel. He was expounding I suppose as well, he was expounding on the Pashas Hakel, when the Jewish king every 7 years would from the Sefer Torah, and all the Jewish people would come together to see the king, etc. in Yerushalayim. What did he say? So the Pasuk says, Hakel Za'am, gather the Jewish people. Hanoshim, the men. The Hanoshim, and the women. B'ataf, and the children. Ima noshim boy milboy, says the Gemara. No, we're doing the thumb bit. Ima noshim boy milboy. If the men came to learn, noshim boy lishma, and the women came to hear. We're going to be explaining that because they're not allowed to see. So the women came to hear. They didn't get it. Okay. That was a joke, ladies. Thank you. Boy lishma, the women came to hear. Taf lama boy. Why did the children come? So you get this. So the men are coming to learn every 7 years. The women come to listen. I'll tell you more about that in a second. But what's the point of bringing the children? We're talking about little children, babies. What's the point of them coming? To which Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the head of the Sanhedrin, said, wait for this! In Beis HaMedrash, it's going to be very exciting. Nitin schar l'meviyeh. To give schar, to give reward for the people that brought them. Okay. Okay. Omar lahem. So Rabbi Yeshua said to his Talmidim, Margolius toiva hoiso li b'yadechem. You have such a precious jewel in your hand, a precious pearl in your hand, and you wanted to hide it from me? Wow. Now, when I read that Gemara, it was a bit of an Elo Yedea moment. What on earth is this Gemara talking about? Now, you got this idea of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. He was pretty frugal, and he was pretty learned. So I want you to imagine that I have a magic wand, and I'm going to bring Teresa Mesa, I'm going to bring him back to life now, and we're outside Yerushalayim. So let's take Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah into Yerushalayim, and we'll take him to Brisk. There's a yeshiva there called Brisk, you know, chaps. Quite advanced. And the excitement, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah has come to Brisk. And Mir, and they all come, what's he going to say? He's darshaning on that. The men, says the post, have to come to learn, and the women have to come, and they're coming to listen. And the children, what were they coming for? To give reward to the parents who brought them. That's it! That's your chiddush! There's an expression I've been trying to master since moving to America. I don't do it well. The Americans tell me I don't get this right. But it goes something like, duh. I mean, that's it! I mean, Ramat Beit Shemsh, I'm waiting for the thumbs to be flying, the Ketzois and the Rashbaz and the Ripaz. The men came to learn, and the women, they came to listen, and the children would give reward for the people that bring them. Well, this is not a beginner's issue, right? This is Ramat Beit Shemsh. Are you excited? Help me here. Are you excited by this? As they say. What's going on? It's nonsense. Now, when you're looking at a piece of Agadah, as I'm sure you know, I teach my Talmidim all the time, the first place to look, of course, is the Marshal. And after that, I suppose it's up for grabs. The Moral, or my favorite, is the Ben Yehuda, the Ben Ish Chai. So the Ben Ish Chai spends a lot of time with this. And he even says, I'm going to tell you a joke. Ben Ish Chai says, I'll tell you a joke. What does it mean to give reward for the people who brought them? Well, if you imagine all the Jews are all squished together, that means that obviously the fathers are going to be carrying their babies in their arms, right? So it's going to be a nuisance. It's a pain in the neck. And Lafum Sarah Agra, the more difficult the mitzvah, the more reward you get. So that's what it means to give reward to the people that bring it. It's a joke, isn't it? He says it's a joke. What does this mean? What's the story here? Now, just because the ladies are here, I want to make a very important point. What does it mean the men come to learn and the women come to listen? There's a distinction there. So this is said by the Ben Ish Chai. Now I want to reassure you, he was very firm. Okay, he was an Orthodox rabbi. And this is what he says. And then you're going to be scared. Gentlemen sitting on this side of the Machisa, you are going to be scared. Now, I have to tell you from long experience of saying Shem, as I discovered tonight for over 35 years, there's an enormous difference when you say a Shia to men and you say it to women. Enormous difference. And my late wife, Alaa Shalom, told me this many years ago. My wife says the exact same thing. So I goes up and start. But when you say a Shia to women, they want, the Yiddish phrase is tzumzach. They want something which is practical, which makes sense. It's not stupid. But at the end of the day, yeah, but how does that apply to me in my life? Women are practical. Men, we're different. We like the thumbs. We're interested. Yeah, we like the intellectual stuff. Yeah, and he said, and you spend hours in this. Women aren't interested. That doesn't get them. Give me something to talk with. And the Ben Ish Chai quotes the son saying the word means is the men come to learn. The women also hear shir, but the shir that they want to hear is in Yiras Shamayim and Didrei Maaseh. Exactly what we've been saying. That it is applicable to my life. So it's not that women come and sit there, you know, like a bunch of, oh look, my husband's learning, oh that give me that. But they're actually learning as well, but it's a totally different sort of learning. That's the son of the Ben Ish Chai. But the Ben Ish Chai says something which is incredibly, now this is the bit when I have to re-emphasize, he's an Orthodox rabbi. And he quotes the Zohar. The Zohar says, you see, the men, of course, have got a chiyuv to learn Torah. Women don't have the same chiyuv. Why? Because they've got a much more important chiyuv, which is not just producing children, but feeding a mishpacha, controlling a family, directing a family. Maybe that's why they need practical stuff. So they don't have the obligation to sit and work out the intricacies of the logical process that arrived at the halacha. However, he says, the men are sitting learning, the women are listening. But that's not their tachlis, that's not their purpose at this moment in time, because they've got a primary purpose. In Mazayah, that's for family. But when they get to Olam Haba, This is astonishing. When they get to Ilmabah, freed naturally of the purpose of creating families, there's no Taras Mishpach, there are no mikvahs, there are no births in Shemayim. Then women sit and learn Gemara, there are yeshivas for women who sit and learn Gemara with their thumbs flying up and down. In Shemayim, this is Zohar. You see this in the Ben Ish Chai, it's not me making this up. And where do they get that Torah from? It's the Torah that they've absorbed from listening to the husbands learning Torah down here. Hello, ever had such a thing? It's astonishing. So Rabbi said, I just want you to know that when your wife or your daughter is sitting listening to you learning, make sure it's high quality. It might just be a B120, as they say. One day you're going to be upstairs and she's going to slug you up over you're getting wrong shot in the Tysus. Because she gets it, they absorb it by osmosis. Astonishing. And then he says an incredibly interesting thing. Therefore, it is the men who are learning, the women who are listening, they're listening, I suppose, as in support of the husband, but they're also accepting as well. And the children, he says, now here's the big thing. He says the children are not, they don't do the way, it's not like women. Women absorb it, but guess what, I'll tell you a story. I heard this story, I said this story in Borough Park recently. I had in the name of the Manchester Rosh Yeshiva, Zecher Tzadik Kodesh Livrocha. And his son was there. They come rushing up to me afterwards to say I got the details a bit wrong. Anyway, so here's the story. I heard it from Rabbi Moshe Kupitz, who of course is the son-in-law of the Manchester Rosh Yeshiva. It's an incredible story. There was a lady in Williamsburg in New York. Are you with me? That's Satmar territory. And this lady had, Rahman al-Islam, a brain tumor. Now the brain tumor was benign, but of course it still has to be removed. So the doctors, make all the preparations for the operation. My husband's sitting outside with Tehillim. I think we can easily imagine praying with great sincerity and passion. And after 3 or 4 hours, the surgeon comes out and walks over to him and says, Mr. Katzenellenbogen, I've got great news. It was a complete success. I removed everything. Indeed, it's not benign. I have every confidence your wife is going to make 100% perfect recovery. And he said, oh, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. And then the surgeon said to the Satmar Chosik, oh, incidentally, Mr. Katzenellenbogen, you didn't tell me that your wife speaks Italian. And he said, Wolf? And he said, you didn't tell me your wife speaks Italian. Italian? Yes, I'm an Italian-American. Both my parents are from Italy. My first language was Italian, and I speak Italian. And my wife, when I was operating on her, under the anesthetic, she was speaking, and she was speaking perfect Italian. She said, Doctor, my wife's not speaking perfect English. I mean, perfect Italian. So they did a whole inquiry, and an astonishing fact emerged. When this lady was a little baby girl, and when she was born, her mother was very seriously ill as a consequence of the birth. And the mother, it took her a year to recover physically from the birth. So they hired a nurse to look after the baby. And the nurse was Italian. And the nurse used to speak to the baby in Italian, used to sing to the baby in Italian. And then after a year, Baruch Hashem, the mother was fine and looked after her baby, and a grateful couple paid the lady the money they owed her, and off she went to look after somebody else's child. And 35 years later, they say that, whatever's in the computer, even though you delete files, it's in there somewhere, and there are specialist firms who can get out that information that's in there. What you see, what you hear, it impacts, and inside this woman's mind. And when he was operating the brain, as it were, he connected 2 circuits, she started to speak in Italian. This is an astonishing fact. So the idea that when the husband's learning, that the wife is picking it up by osmosis, like a sponge sucking it up, and later on in Shemayim, it coming out again, is hardly such a chidush. But why the children? The Gemara says, and the Ben Ish Chai says, the astonishing thing is when it comes to the children, that doesn't work. Children are too magushim, they're too filled with the the interests and the concerns of this world when they're little children. They want to play with dolls and guns and footballs and all that sort of stuff. So therefore, what's the purpose of bringing them? And the Ben Ish Chai says something astonishing. Our Rabbi Yeshua we're talking about from the Gemara here, an incredible story he told of Rabbi Yeshua, of course, his Rebbe had 5 Talmidim. And the Gemara, you remember the Mishnah always talks about the 5 Talmidim the Rebbe had. One of them was, the second one was Rabbi Yeshua. What does he say about Rabbi Yeshua? Ashrei Yeladatei. Happy was the person who gave birth to him. Who gave birth to him? The mother. So you look at the Bartadura. The Bartadura says, she was such a lucky woman that everybody said, happy is she because he had such wonderful midas. That's answer number 1. But answer number 2 is astonishing. Listen to this. I don't know if you know this. It's in the Bartadura. Let's see it in the Mishnah and Pirkei Avos. The Bartadura says that when she was expecting her son, this little baby, she went to all the yeshivas in the town, and she went in and asked the boys to daven and say that my child should grow up to be a big Talmud Chacham. And not only that, astonishing thing, when he was born, you know what happened? She never took his crib out of the yeshiva. It was at the back of the yeshiva. Rabbi Yeshua was brought up in the yeshiva. When is it that Torah, for a woman, it goes in by osmosis. For a child, it doesn't go in by osmosis. Do you know why? Because too much of Olam Hazeh in there, it doesn't go in. I remember in Gateshead Yeshiva when I was there, it used to drive us nuts. We had Sephardi boys come to the yeshiva. I would say in my time, maybe about a quarter of the boys, maybe a third of the boys were Sephardi, which is fine. I'm not a Sephardi. But you know what really used to drive us nuts was, these guys came from, usually our Sephardi came from Morocco. In America, they're usually Bukharians and Persians and stuff, Syrians. But most of ours were from North Africa. And they would come knowing nothing, and they were usually very poor boys. Look, and within a year, they were Talmidei Chacham. It was so annoying for us Ashkenazim. It was infuriating. Maybe we'd been to proper from schools and stuff, and these guys would come and they got Hebrew in a second, and they got Aramaic in a second, and we hated them. No, I'm joking. And I asked one of my Rosh Yeshiva, why is that? What happened? How come this is good? He said, because your head's full of narishkeit. Your head's full of nonsense. Did you learn the kings and queens of Scotland and England when you were in school, Rubenstein? Yeah. Right. Oh, and if you're American, did you learn the presidents of the United States of America? Yeah, going on from the very first, George Washington, to hopefully the very last. Iraq, something, etc., etc. Did you learn it? Our head's full of garbage. Imagine a litre jug and it's full of water, and you want to put in orange juice instead. Or orange juice. Let's say you want to get rid of the orange juice and put it in the water. Well, easy. Pour out the orange juice, pour in a litre of water. Pashut! In baya! But suppose you start pouring in water to displace the orange juice. How many litres of water are you going to have to pour in to displace the orange juice and push it out? Probably 100 gallons, I'm guessing, only 20, I don't know, a lot to get out. Our head was full because we had to go to the schools where we learned all this nonsense. There's a lot to displace. Suppose there's nothing to displace, just like these Moroccan boys, and it all goes straight in. Rabbi Yeshua's mother never took him out of the base of Medrash. So it just went in right at the very, very beginning. That's why he gets so excited by this Chidush. What are we talking about here? Wow, what a Torah! You're telling me that? Wow! It was to give reward to the people that brought them. His mother brought him to the base of Medrash. Now he gets it. That's what happened when my mother brought me. It all went in. Isn't that fantastic? You see, we're often, and I think this applies to everybody, we're often critical of our parents. Are we not? That's until we become parents ourselves. I remember when I was a little boy, actually, when one of my little boys was a little boy, he came in to see me once because there was a major tragedy had happened in his life. I think he was 3 or 4, and the wing had broken off his toy airplane. I was reading a letter from my bank manager. He used to write to me all the time. And it was not expressions of love and affection. I seem to be always overdrawn. In fact, I seem to be consistent my entire life. I'm always struggling for funds. And I was sitting there, and it was a demand. If I didn't get money into my account by tomorrow or 2 minutes' time, it was death. And I was pulling my pants out, I didn't know what to do. And my son comes in with this major tragedy in his 3-year-old life, you know, and I said, for goodness sake, can't you see I'm busy? Get out! And out he went, and the door closed, and I could hear what he was thinking, you know, rubbish. My friend Shawley, his dad would have fixed a plane. My friend Shawley's got a decent dad. And so on and so forth. And then I remember the exact same thing happening to me. And when I was a little boy, I had a teddy bear who was called Ted. Well, I was only 3. No marks for originality there. And Ted had arms that swiveled, and one of Ted's arms came off. It fell off my voice line. So it's easy to be honest. I went to see my father. And I was like, and he said, get out, can't you see I'm dead? And I remember going, you rubbish, there's a decent dad, David, etc., etc., etc. Maybe my father was reading a letter from his bank manager. In fact, maybe my father's bank manager was the father of my bank manager. Runs in the family. And we're all very critical of our parents and think, you know, oh, how did you let us down? Until, of course, we become parents ourselves, and then it's, sometimes we see it not being quite so straightforward. And here, you know, sometimes, you know, why did my mother do this? Why did my mother do this? You know, she put me there and left me there, you know. Yeah, because it's going to make you into the building of door. Sometimes it's only when you're later on in life where Yeshua sees that here's this Kiddush from a husband, it's like, wow! Oh, that's me, I just get it. He now gets it, didn't get it before. Didn't understand that before. So he gets what his mother was doing. And the question of this boy is, what was her father doing? What are you doing? I'm going to say thank you to you for taking me out from Mitzrayim. You put me in Mitzrayim. Unless, of course, he had to. Unless, of course, he had to put us in Mitzrayim. When I was a little boy, I think I was 3, I had to have my tonsils removed. I was living in a place called Glasgow in Scotland, born, and that's so beautiful, I think I'll say it again, Scotland. And so my mother took me, and I'm an only child. I have no siblings. I prefer to think of myself as being unique, but they call it an only child. And basically my mother took me to the hospital because the next morning I was scheduled to have my tonsils removed. Now I was very close to my late mum, and this had never happened before. She just never left me. And suddenly, she took me into the ward, and the nurse took me from her arms, and plopped me into a crib, into a cot. And I don't know how it works in hospitals these days, I doubt it's quite like that. But in those days, nurses were a little bit like sergeant majors in the United States Marine Corps, you know. So my mother was sent out, and I was, right? And then, I cried, of course, and cried myself to sleep. Next morning, in came another equally horrible-looking nurse, calling my name, and I did the only sensible thing that any 3-year-old could do. I hid underneath the blanket. This did not work. She came, pulled me up, took me in, general anaesthetic, took out the tonsils, or clipped the tonsils, whatever they do. Half an hour later, out of the general anaesthetic, ice cream. Blida, where is it? You're big! You know, take out the other one, you know, anything else, go ahead, I'm liking the ice cream. But suppose, Rahman al-Islam, it wasn't tonsils, suppose it was leukemia. Now I mention leukemia because it is a completely curable cancer on almost every occasion in children these days. Baruch Hashem, Chesed Hashem is not. But it won't be that the mother and father will take the child to hospital for a day or a week. The child might have to be in hospital for a year. And the treatment is not, you know, a quick anesthetic, snip, painless, and ice cream. It's going to be chemotherapy. Rahman Islam is going to be radiotherapy. There might be bone marrow transplant. And you can imagine a 3-year-old, why is my mother or my father this to me? Why did they do this to me? But later on, like Rabbi Yeshua, now I get it. Now I understand. Suppose the reason that Hashem Yisborach took us to Mitzrayim, this bloody exile, was because He needed to. Suppose that was the cure for something that was wrong with us. And if He hadn't taken us there, we would not have survived and not be here till this year. Then what's your attitude going to be? The Bocha said to me, why should we give thanks to Hashem Yisborach for taking us to the shrine? He put us there in the first place. Suppose He had to put us there in the first place. Why would He have to put us there in the first place? Well, the first time we're told that we're going to Mitzrayim, as you probably remember, Bereshis Tesvav Ches, Abraham Avinu says, Rabban Shalom, I'm not going to have any children. Eliezer's going to inherit me. Hashem says, no, you're going to have children. You see, the full explanation of this dialogue appears in Bereshis in the Gemara in Shabbos and Kuf and Vav. Avraham Avinu then comes around and says to Hashem Yisborach, I'm going to have children. Rabban Shalom, Histalti be'itztagniya sheli. I've looked into this using my powers of astrology, and I see that I'm not fated to have children. Hashem Yisborach says, Instagniya sheli. The mazolas, the planets, and the effect they have on people's lives in this world, say be'itztagniya sheli. Ignore the planets. She'ein mazel Yisrael. Jews are not affected by mazel. So there was a flaw, a chesaron, a tiny flaw in the madrega of Amunah of Avraham Avinu that needed to be fixed. Now I don't know if you know this, but when the Europeans put satellites into space, they used a thing called the Ariane space rocket. And going back, if I remember rightly, 20 years ago, was the Ariane, first launch of the Ariane 5. It had 4 satellites on top. Now we're talking, it cost $7 billion to upgrade from the Ariane 4 to the Ariane 5. And there was 4 satellites, that was $350 million worth of satellite in the money of 20 years ago. So whatever it is today, it's going to be a lot more. And the satellite was taking off, and 4 miles up, it was going off course, and they had to press the self-destruct button, boom, it was gone. So you just lost, your prestige, and you've lost $350 million worth of satellites, as they say, what's happened? So there was a whole inquiry, and they discovered that the computer on board the rocket, which controls the direction of the rocket, is called the attitude control. And there had been a mistake in the computer programming of the attitude control. Do you know what the mistake was? I memorized this. 0.000000001 of a millimeter. 0.000000001 of a millimeter. To which you say, big deal? It's a nothing. It's a garnish. Klum. But that tiny flaw, over time and over space, over 4 miles, became exponentially exaggerated to the point where the rocket was not achieved, or not going to achieve orbit, might fall and somebody blow up and kill them all, had to be blown up. A tiny flaw in somebody who's going to carry and create a cloud of straw through 3,500 years can't be there, or grow through time. So there's a problem with the moon. Where's the next time we see a problem that's going to force a Mitzrayim and cloud of straw? The next time is the fight between Yosef and the brothers. Remember that? And it's all complicated, and it's all the fact that Yosef is convinced that the brothers have done something wrong, which they didn't do. And then the brothers are convinced that he spoiled their relationship with their father. V'lo yochro ledabra leshalom. And Pashas V'yeshev, and they weren't able to speak to him leshalom. If you look at the word leshalom, it's written defectively. It's a vav, it's shalom without a vav. It's vav chaser. It's le, lamed, shin, lamed, mem. So the Baal HaTurim says, why? Why is the vav missing? Because if you count up lamed, shin, lamed, mem without the vav, you get 400. The 400 years that Klal Yisrael were fated to be in Golos, as a consequence of the fact that Jews could not speak to each other in Shalom. And every Golos, as we know, is caused by Sinas Chinam. The Aruch HaShulchan in his Agoda, Leil Shemurim, says that even Bayis Rishon was caused ultimately by the fact that the Rabbonim didn't speak to each other with love and respect, and there was Sinas Chinam amongst the Gedolim. So every Gola starts because of Sinas Chinam. So Mitzrayim is going to be a cure for a Klal Yisrael in which there is a flaw of Emunah and a flaw of Ahavas Yisrael. Did that work? Did the treatment work? Well, every single one of the plagues in Mitzrayim was accompanied by the destruction of the gods in Mitzrayim. Remember the Medrash says? In their temples, they had all the gods. And incidentally, they were not idiots. Don't make the mistake of thinking the Egyptians were idiots. They're incredibly sophisticated. And each one of these gods, their belief system, embraced and understood the mechanisms of the universe, how it works. They just forgot that Hashem controls all these mechanisms. And every time there was a dam, a tenth of their gods, poof, blew up. What that means is, any alternative belief, apart from in Hashem, disappeared. Until they were all gone except one, which was Orach. And the Jewish people come and then turn back again. The Egyptian just that's where we get the movie from. And the Jewish people sort of are chased by the Egyptians, etc. And then, of course, you see it's Mitzrayim, completed at Yam Suf, and Klal Yisrael, Vayaminu b'Hashem of Moshe, Vayaminu b'Hashem. That tiny flaw in Avram Avinu from all the centuries before is now fixed. And Klal Yisrael, when we stood 7 weeks later under the mountain, if the other flaw is that they hated each other, that they were Perud, ki ish echod b'lev echod, v'yachem v'yimbar v'yicham sham Yisrael. So now, suppose there's a flaw in Klal Yisrael, that if you don't get it, if you don't nip it in the bud, if you don't treat it now, guess what? I was actually in Houston, Texas just a few weeks ago, and one of my books is called The Little Book for Big Words, dealing with serious illness, which I have the chutzpah to tell you should all own. We will all, I hope, be dealing with somebody who's not well at some point in our lives. Bikkur Cholim is a mitzvah. We want to help people who are not well. You want to do it well. And this book is telling you how to deal with people who are not well and do it properly. And I got 3 doctors, 3 Talmidim of mine. One lives in Renana, where I'll be tomorrow night. To write, one's a Talmud of mine from Gateshead days, he's a leading oncologist in London. And another is somebody called Professor Ruth Katz. And Professor Ruth Katz, 10 years ago, discovered the early signature of colon cancer in the blood. And I was there saying share for her, and she patented this. She became a very rich lady, and saved millions of lives. Because they can see it in the blood long before it starts to create tumours, zap it with one chemotherapy, ta-da! She's doing it at the moment, the exact same thing for lung cancer. And I was with her just before Pesach, saying share for her again in Houston, Texas. And Friday, I arrived on Thursday. She said, what do you want to do on Friday? Do you want to see this? In Houston, we'll take you to the football game or whatever. We'll see I said, I'd like to see your laboratory. So I came to the laboratory, and there's a whole bunch of incredibly talented and sophisticated scientists, and we're showing you the process and how they put some dye in, and they can spot the 4 different colours of chromosome, and if there are more than 2 chromosomes of a particular colour, then that's cancer. Every single test at the moment will say it's okay, it's nothing. No, it isn't, it's cancer. And they can zap it straight away. So she taught me how to do this. And she brought me up on a screen. She said, what do you think? I said, yes, I think that's cancer. The 2 chromosomes, you're right. And you'll meet this man tomorrow and show. And you'll meet this man tomorrow and show. And indeed I did. And he stood up there and said, I want you to know that Professor Katz has found the cure for cancer. Early detection. Early detection. You can get it before it grows. And incidentally, this fellow had 1 treatment of chemotherapy. There was not 1 cancer cell left. Early detection, if you can cap it at the beginning, it never grows. So Avram Avinu, there's a tiny chromosome flaw in the mother, say Chazal. I looked into my powers of astrology and I'm not going to have any children. Oh really? Oh, Mazonos, huh? In Mazel Yisrael. That's going to grow and plants are lasting uprooted. It's surrounded now. Oh, Klal Yisrael is full of parent. We can deal with that as well. So guess what? There can be a mother who does something for a child and the child doesn't understand it. And later on in life, then he gets what's going on. And then there can be Avinu Shebashamayim, who does things in our life and we don't understand the positive thing that he's doing with us in our life. Especially when we're young. And especially when we're distressed and upset because we're in pain. There's a beautiful medrash, you all know this medrash. Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to Har Sinai and he sees Hashem. Hashem's wearing tefillin. Moshe sees Hashem wearing tefillin. Which tefillin did he see, do you remember? It's the Shel Rosh. Which bit of the tefillin did he see? The knot at the back, that's quite right. And there's two things wrong with this medrash. So wear tefillin, you require two elements. One is tefillin. The second is a head. And Hashem doesn't have either. This is a message to a Navi to understand, to interpret, and to explain. What is the message? The Bial already said something which I thought was godless. The message of this medrash that's being taught to Moshe Rabbeinu is, you only see Hashem looking behind. How many times in your life have you said something's gone wrong, you say, at the time I thought it was the worst possible thing that could happen. But now, how many times have you said that? How many times have you heard somebody else say that? When you're in the middle of the storm, you just want to get to dry land. It's only you get there, then you start to appreciate what's going on. Why Hashem was doing this for you. It's a message for life. It's important. Sometimes Hashem is doing such stuff of such enormity to us, we're just not getting it because we're in the middle of the storm. But later on, when you look back, Rabbi Yeshua says, no, I get it. It's such a chiddush. It's not chiddush. It's not a beginner's yeshiva. The beginning class at Isha Torah. You know, the fathers came to learn, and the mothers came to listen, and the children came to our time. What's this? This is godless. You have to know how to look to realize it's godless. It's godless in all our lives. And I don't think there's a coincidence that I met somebody for the first time 35 years ago, or I met somebody just recently. I moved here. How long have you been here, roughly? A year. Gosh, that's great. And then all the other people that I've known and had a huge friendship with and appreciation of. We all touch other lives. Sometimes people touch your life and you don't understand what they've got up their sleeve and what they did was for our benefit. Sometimes it seems like, why are you doing this? You put us there in the first place. I did it for you. And sometimes we have to look back. Sometimes we only see Hashem looking behind. It's been a huge pleasure to be with you again. Thank you.